Welcome back, Urgent Video. Today we are back from the NFL tier list video. Today doing the post-draft NFL defensive tier list. Now, not too long ago, we did our post-draft NFL offensive tier list going into this coming NFL season. So if you didn't see it, go check it out. You guys always seem to love the tier list videos, and I always seem to like doing them. So I'm excited to get into this one. I do have a few more planned for kind of the off season that we'll get into as well. We're also doing a player prediction series. We're talking about one player for every team and predicting how they're going to do this year. And then at the end of that series, which we are about halfway done, we will do teams as a whole going into next year, predicting the team, their record, all that kind of stuff. So into the defensive tier list. Now for the offensive one, there were actually a decent amount of things that changed before and after. I guess I should say before we did that video. And then after the video, by the next time we record the post one, a lot of changes were made, like Rodgers officially going to the Jets, Lamar's contract, some things like that. I don't think defense was as crazy with new additions, but still, people were drafted and things did shift, so we do have some new things to talk about. Starting with the Colts. Now, the Colts, they don't have a ton of standout players on that defense, and there is actually one thing to note as well. But anyway, so some of their standout players like DeForest Buckner, Shaq Leonard, they are very, very good. And I think they will have a decent defense. Now, apparently, I cannot remember. I want to say Isaiah Rodgers, I think, maybe has gotten in trouble with gambling, I think, this past year or something. So he might be suspended for I don't know how long, but when it comes to that kind of stuff, the NFL is usually pretty harsh. So that is a bit of a loss there. But overall, I think the Colts' biggest draft pick overall was Anthony Richardson. And they kind of added their offense a bit with Josh Downs later on as well. So do I think the Colts are going to have a crazy good defense? Probably not. And I don't think that's really the focus this year anyway. It was to really just redo their offense because last year was just beyond atrocious. So I'm going to say C for the Colts. They do have some great players, but overall I don't think they're going to wow anyone with their defense. The Jaguars are next. So the Jaguars defense, they got Trayvon Walker last year, who is still fairly young. They have Josh Allen, who is, obviously incredible. And then Tyson Campbell, who again is pretty young. The Jaguars team, really as a whole, offense and defense, is pretty young. So going into this year, I don't know how incredible they're going to be, and I do think the focus is more their offense with Trevor Lawrence, Calvin Ridley coming back. So is their defense bad? I don't think so, but I'm going to put them in C as well because they don't really jump off the page to me as far as their defense goes. And I also just realized we have like 3 of those teams from the same division all right here. I didn't really mean to do that. But next is the Titans. The Titans have a lot of question marks around them, both offense and defense. But defense, they do have some big leaders like Kevin Byard. They have Jeffrey Simmons. They have Harold Landry coming back. The Titans defense, I think, is going to be pretty solid. I kind of just want to put them in C, though, with the rest of that division because teams in the AFC South are not that crazy. And that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put them in C. You can maybe make a case for any of those teams being low B tier, but I'm just going to play it safe and put them in C. That's really where I feel most comfortable putting them. The Broncos, though, I'm going to put them actually in S. I think the Broncos defense is one of the best in the league, and I'm not sure if that's a hot take or not, but you got Pat Surtain, who's just played so well and quickly become one of the better corners in all of football. Last year, the Broncos defense, I think I've said this stat like so many times on this channel, but either way, last year, I think when the Broncos were they had a bad losing record. Think about week 8 or week 9. The Broncos defense had only allowed 18 points on average, up until that point. And if the Broncos offense would have scored how many points, only 20, I think, they would have won all those games because their defense was so good at stopping other offenses, and I don't really see them declining. The pass rush is a little questionable, but you still have Pat Surtain, you have Justin Simmons, you have some great playmakers on that defense. So I don't think the pass rush weighs it down too much because really last year, they really stepped it up, and I don't see them really regressing, honestly. Next is the Chiefs defense, and the Chiefs defense I'm actually going to put in A. You have Chris Jones. You lose Frank Clark. I'm not sure how big of a loss that really is for them, though, but you do have Chris Jones, who is obviously just one of the best in the league at his position. And you have a fairly young secondary with Trent McDuffie. You have Jalen Watson. You obviously lost Tyrann Mathieu a few seasons ago, but this past year you won the Super Bowl, so I guess it worked out okay for you. And the Chiefs defense, I think, is just A tier. I think the Chiefs are so self-explanatory at this point where I don't even need to do a long kind of analysis on them because like their offense, I just kind of said Patrick Mahomes' name, and I think everyone's on the same page that like they're gonna compete, they're gonna be good. That's just how the Chiefs are. So they're going in A. Next is the Raiders. So the Raiders, you have Max Crosby and you have Chandler Jones. You also go and draft Tyree Wilson, who I think was a pretty good pick actually. I think he's done with a foot injury or was during the draft or like before the draft. I think he's okay when the season comes around. I think he's gonna be a great addition for that D line. But the secondary is a little questionable. I'm not going to lie. Secondary is very questionable, and that definitely kind of weighs that team down for me. But I am going to put them in B still because I do think they still have a good defense. It's just the secondary is not near as good as that D-line is. Also, for you guys that are new on my channel or watching this, at the end of these videos, I do usually go back over and rearrange some things if I don't like where they are, because I do try and keep it somewhat fluid while I do this, where I can go to the next team and don't spend too long on them. So if I rank a team maybe like a tier 2 low or a tier 2 high, that doesn't mean that's where they're going to stay by the end of the video. I might move them up or down, just depends. I'm just going to try and kind of keep things, moving so we can get through every team here in a somewhat reasonable amount of time. Over to the Chargers, though. So the Chargers have a pretty good defense. They have Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack, who are some incredible pass rushers, obviously. They had J.C. Jackson at corner, and then he goes down with an injury. I don't even know if he's still on the roster, I'm going to be honest. And if he is, he seemed to regress pretty badly going from the Patriots to the Chargers. But you do have Asante Samuel Jr., who played incredible in that playoff game, which they did choke away. But he still had an incredible game, and I think he is going to continue to grow and be a great corner. And obviously you have Derwin James, who is one of the best one of the best safeties in the NFL. So Chargers defense, I'm going to give them an A. I think they have a great defense. And I just realized that we also have that division really close together as well. So that's very odd. And I did not do that on purpose, just by chance. Cowboys are going to S tier. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. You got Micah Parsons. You have DeMarcus Lawrence. You even get Stephon Gilmore. And Stephon Gilmore, he's older, but he has some good football left in him. I mean, on the Colts, he played very, very solid. So that was a great pick. You have Trayvon Diggs. I mean, there's not really a downside to the team, or to the defense at least. I think you have a very, very solid defense and one of the best in the NFL by far. So that's going to go in S tier. Next is the Giants. The Giants defense actually looked pretty good last year. You did have Kayvon Thibodeau, who finished the season pretty strong. And then other than him, you still have Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams, who both played honestly incredible last season. Secondary, once again, though, like kind of with the Raiders, it is a little worse than the D-line, and that does make me kind of think the Giants, pull the Giants defense down a little bit because of that. So I'm going to put them in B, but if their secondary steps it up, that could be an A-tier defense, honestly. Next is the Eagles. I mean, you draft Jalen Carter, you draft Nolan Smith, you still have Darius Slay, you still have James Bradbury, and you have Hassan Reddick, which, I mean, that is unbelievably strong. You do lose C.J. Gardner-Johnson, which is definitely going to sting a little bit. But, I mean, overall, the defense, I mean, you brought in some great young guys, and you still have some of the big leaders on there. So I'm putting them in S. I think they're one of the best in the league. Next is the Bills. The Bills were actually very unfortunate last year with some of their injuries. But now you have Micah Hyde, you have Jordan Poyer. And honestly, the Bills defense is very good. Hopefully Von Miller is back and healthy. I like the Bills defense a lot. I'm going to put them in A. I wouldn't say S tier, but I do think the Bills defense is going to take a bit of a step up from last year because they were just very depleted with injuries by the time the end of the season rolled around. So they're going to go in A. Next is Washington. So Washington, all right, let's see. So I want to start with Chase Young. Chase Young had such a great rookie year. And then, he tears his ACL, and I think it was maybe worse than they were letting on. He didn't really play a whole lot last year. If he is able to seriously rest up however long it's been now and come back to his kind of rookie season form, he's going to be a huge boost for them in defense. Absolutely huge. So that's a must for sure. And then obviously you draft Emmanuel Forbes, who personally I would have gone with Christian Gonzalez, but he's still a great corner, and he should definitely help you out for big time in the secondary. And then also, I almost forgot, honestly, but you also re-signed Jerron Payne, which is a big defensive tackle signing. So Washington's defense, I think, will be pretty solid. Chase Young can, like I said, come back healthy. Definitely help him out a bit, but I'm still just going to put him in B for right now. Next is the Bears. The Bears have a lot of holes across their entire team, and I will give their GM credit. I cannot remember his name, Poles, I think. I will give him a lot of credit because he has really gone out, acknowledged those holes that they needed to fill, and they've gone out and really tried to fill them. Defense, they actually got TJ Edwards, I believe, and Tremaine Evans, which is, great for linebackers since they lost Roquan Smith. And overall, I think, are they going to come out next year and shock everybody with like a top 5, maybe even 10 defense? Probably not. I do think their defense is still going to be pretty bad, but these things don't just happen overnight. You don't just sign these guys and all of a sudden, most of the time, you don't just sign these guys and then all of a sudden they're, incredible, take a huge step. So I don't see it next year, honestly, but I do think it's going in the right direction, and it just takes time. Might be annoying to watch, not take the huge step yet and have to sit through another, not saying they're going to have a bad season, but defensively, maybe not the best year. But, I think it's going the right direction, but I am going to put the Bears in C. I don't love their defense, but I do think they're making the right changes. I will give them that for sure. Next is the Lions. The Lions are also making the right changes, so obviously I don't think it's too much of a surprise or shock to hear this, but their defense really held them back last year because their offense was very, very good, and their secondary was just really not. It just was not that great. But you still have Aiden Hutchinson, who you drafted. He had a great rookie year. And while, like I mentioned, the secondary was a struggle for them last year, they went out and addressed that. They brought in Emmanuel Mosley, they brought in C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and they also brought in Cam Sutton, who, again, they might not be the biggest names, other than Gardner-Johnson, obviously, who is very, very good. But they are better than last year, and they will give them some nice depth there to really kind of learn and grow and develop. I like the Lions defense a lot. You draft Jack Campbell as well out of, I think, Iowa for linebacker. I like the Lions defense. I think they definitely improved from last year. I'm going to put them in B. Next is the Packers. The Packers always have a very solid defense. It seems like a lot of times it kind of keeps them in games, like last year when their offense kind of struggled. They still have that defense. By far, the biggest name there is Jair Alexander, who has usually been one of the best corners in the NFL. When you have guys like Kenny Clark, who's a huge difference maker, and then you also draft Quay Walker, who showed some nice flashes actually last year, who I think will take a nice step in his second year. You have the right things going for sure. So I do think the Packers are just in this state of kind of things changing. They're bringing new guys in. Their franchise guy, Aaron Rodgers, after all these users are gone, it's just kind of the middle right there where you're kind of getting rid of the old guys, bring all the new guys, and there are still some question marks, but I do think the difference makers are still there in the defense, and I think they'll have a B tier defense. I'm going to put them there. Next is the Vikings, who, in my opinion, have like a Super Bowl caliber offense and a high school JV defense. That's probably a little harsh, but their defense is, I mean, it hurt them last year, and we saw it in the playoffs. I mean, Daniel Jones shredded that defense. It was rough, but they did make some nice changes. They still have Harrison Smith, who, while he's older, is a phenomenal safety, and I feel like a lot of times he just doesn't get enough credit for that. You lose Darius Smith, but you bring in Marcus Davenport for D-line, who is a great edge rusher. And then you also have, I cannot remember his name all of a sudden, and now it's really going to bother me. Byron Murphy. You also signed Byron Murphy from the Cardinals, who's a great addition for corner because you lost Pat Pete. Even though he was old and he did play very well, Byron Murphy, a lot more years left in him, and he's a great young corner. Overall, though, the Vikings defense, I don't see them taking the jump, like I said, this year. They still have some things to work on. While their offense is incredible and their offense will keep them in games, the defense, I think, still just it needs some more time. I'm going to put them in C. I don't like the Vikings defense very much. Next is the Falcons. And I will hint to the Falcons, as much as I hate the Falcons, being a Panthers fan, they had a horrible D-line, like really, really bad the past 2 years. Like the past 2 or 3 years, I think, they had like 34 sacks, which was like, I think, less than a lot of teams had just like in one season or something. I mean, it's really, really, really bad. But they did go out and they did try and address it. You got Grady Jarrett some help. You brought in David Onyemata and you got Bud Dupree. I almost lost that one for a second. And Bud Dupree, who are some nice veteran guys who will definitely help out that D-line. The biggest signing, though, in my opinion, is Jesse Bates from Cincinnati. He's a great safety, one of the best in the league, in my opinion. Big time signing, as much as I like to admit that. And you also go get Jeff Okudah from the Lions, who has struggled his first few years, had a better year last year. And I do think that's important for him to kind of get a fresh start. And he honestly might be able to give you some meaningful minutes. So the Falcons, as much as I hate to do it, they're going to go and be defense. I think they're going to actually have a pretty solid defense. But next is the Panthers, who is obviously a team I talk about a lot more than the Falcons. And so for their defense, I am honestly very excited for it. And I do think they will have a very good defense. They go get a new defensive coordinator first off. I mean, Steve Wilkes was a great defensive coordinator, but I mean, he decided to leave, which, I understand that after turning the head coaching job, it would be kind of awkward. But they go out and they got Ierho, I don't even remember how to say his first name. Avero is all I remember, and he's a great defensive coordinator. You have Brian Burns, Frankie Louvu, who has really impressed in his last season, especially the last 2 seasons, really. J.C. Horn, if he can stay healthy, is an incredible corner. Jeremy Chen, going back to kind of like the sub linebacker hybrid safety kind of thing, where he really thrives, I think will help him out a lot. I really, really like the Panthers defense, and I'm going to put them in B. I don't think they're going to have like a top 5 defense, but I do think they will be the strength of that team so far. And honestly, if everything comes together, they could be a high B, low A tier defense, in my opinion. Next is the Saints. This entire division just in a row. I don't know why, but it just kind of happened that way. The Saints were in a very bad position, especially whenever, they lost those guys in free agency and all, but they still have Cam Jordan, and they did make some nice changes. Also, you have Tyrann Mathieu from the previous year, who, is still a great safety, great player. You have Marcus May, who I think is going to help you out a little bit as well. And overall, I think the Saints, that division, honestly, in general, now that I'm looking at it, I think always has fairly solid defenses. I don't think the Saints are any different, honestly. They're going to go in B. I do think they're going to have a good defense. And honestly, I'm just going to go right to the Buccaneers. I kind of think they're going to go in B as well. I'm just going to put this entire division, all of NFC South, in the B tier for defense. Because while some of their offenses might be pretty bad, I do like their defenses a lot. And the Buccaneers are no different. Now, they are not that defense from when they won the Super Bowl with Tom Brady. They've lost some guys, but they still have some big playmakers like Jamal Dean for corner. He's a big one. And they still have Levante David as well at linebacker. And there are some good difference makers there. And I think they're going to compete, especially because that division's all pretty bad. So it's also going to make them look better than what they might be. But still, honestly, jokes aside, I think all those defenses are in the B tier range. Next up is the Cardinals. And I am just going to be honest, the Cardinals defense is going to be bad. And I think the Cardinals are going to be one of, if not the worst team in the league next year. There's just not a lot of bright spots. I mean, you draft B.J. Ojulari, who I think does have some pretty nice potential. But man, I mean, you lose J.J. Watt, and there's just not much more of that defense. They're going to go in the D tier. I'm not even going to say much more about the Cardinals. They don't have a whole lot of playmakers. Like I said, you lose Byron Murphy to the Vikings in free agency. There's just not a lot going for the Cardinals. I'm sorry, but there's just not a lot to talk about there. Next is the Dolphins, though, and there is a bit more to talk about now. Last year, let's say mid-season, they go out and they got Bradley Chubb. A very nice addition to their defensive line, which they did need some help there. And then now you go get Jalen Ramsey. I mean, you're just really strengthening that defense. You still have Xavier Howard, and I like the Dolphins defense a lot, honestly. I'm going to put them in A. I think they have a great team, and I think their offense and defense are now going to be on very similar levels, which are two very high levels, in my opinion. I like the Dolphins defense a lot. And then to go right back down, we're now going to go to the Rams defense. And I am not going to lie to you, Aaron Donald is the only notable good defensive player on this defense. Maybe I'm a casual for that. I don't know, but they're not good. The Rams were really bad last year. I understand they had some injuries on both offense and defense, but I mean, they lost Jalen Ramsey. That was one of their big saving graces. And they're just not that team that won the Super Bowl. They're just not. And Aaron Donald is an amazing player, one of the best defensive players of all time, in my opinion. But they're going to be two bottom of the barrel defensive teams, in my opinion. So next, the 49ers, though, and they're going up to S. We're going up and down right now. The 49ers, a lot of people hold as being I guess having the best defense in the NFL. You have Fred Warner, obviously the best one of the best linebackers in the NFL. You have Nick Bosa. I mean, there's not a downside to the 49ers defense. They play at such a high level, and they have some pretty nice competition too, seems like. And, last year they just couldn't get done in the NFC Championship. You can't really blame them too much for that. That's on the defense. They were on the field the entire time because their offense couldn't move the ball, no quarterback. Suck end of the year for them, but I do see them next season still having incredible defense and definitely in the S tier range. And then next is the Seahawks. So the Seahawks I like a lot. You got Tyreek Woolen, you have Kobe Bryant as your other corner, and then you also draft Devin Witherspoon, which honestly kind of shocked me. I thought they were going to go Jalen Carter, but he seems to be a very good pick. And I think the Seahawks had a great draft, honestly. I believe I ranked them pretty high on my NFL draft tier list video I did a while back. So I honestly love the Seattle defense. They also brought back Bobby Wagner as well for a linebacker. So I'm quite the fan. I'm not going to lie. They're going to go an A-tier defense for me. I think the Seahawks are honestly a very fun team to watch because of how unexpectedly good they were last year. And I see them being still in that similar level going into next year. Next is the Patriots defense. Now, Patriots defense, I could get away with putting them in S tier. I'm going to put them in A as of right now. I might move them up. So we'll see. Just let me kind of go through this, though. But first off, the Patriots defense really carried them last year. Very similarly to the Jets, who we're going to talk about in a minute. But the Patriots defense was very, very good. You have Matthew Judon, who had a great year. Marcus Jones is absolutely incredible. And then you also draft Christian Gonzalez, who honestly I think is a steal. I believe they traded back and still landed him. And he seems like the real deal in training camp. I don't doubt it. I love that pick. The Patriots defense, I think it's going to be the strength of that team again. Their offense, I talked about in my previous tier list video, and we also talked about the entire team during our team predictions later on the road. But for right now, Patriots defense, I like a lot. They're going in A. Next is the Jets. Now I am going to put the Jets defense in S. I'm sorry, Patriots fans. You're probably going to hate me for that, but I do like the Jets defense slightly more. I like Sauce Gardner a lot. I think he's instantly one of the best corners in football. I like DJ Reed a lot as well. Quinnen Williams had a phenomenal season as well. I love the Jets defense. I think they're great. They're going to go in S. Once again, looking at it, you could definitely move the Patriots to S. But I'm leaving there for right now. A few more teams to talk about. Next is the Ravens. So I didn't realize how many good defenses we had for like the last 10 teams. Wow. Okay. So yeah, Ravens. You have Patrick Queen, who is very, very good. You also have Roquan Smith, who you got mid-year last year, who is an absolutely amazing addition. I absolutely love that pickup. Honestly, it seems like the offseason focus has been mostly on the offense because of the whole Lamar issue, and then you draft Zay Flowers, and you go get Odell. So there's a lot of attention on there. And honestly, I think it's because that they didn't need to address the defense a whole lot because their defense is just really good the way it was. You lose Calais Campbell, big defensive leader. It's going to sting a little bit, but I don't think you lose too much overall. And I like the Ravens defense a lot. Also, Kyle Hamilton, I'm not sure how much we're about to talk about him. Had a great rookie season. I feel like he didn't get talked about enough, honestly. He's only going to get better in my opinion. I love the Ravens defense. And, oh man, S or A? I'm putting an A. I'm going to move some of these around once I'm done talking about them. Next is the Bengals. Bengals defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo, I think I said correctly, has really done a lot with the guys in that roster. Not to say that they're not good players in that defensive roster, but, I mean, his scheme has definitely worked a lot. I mean, he made Eli Apple look like a pretty good corner for some time. And Eli Apple, I will say, I think was overhated, but he was just so annoying, so, maybe he had it coming to him. Sadly for the Bengals last year, Chidobe Awuzie, I think. I can't say it correctly. I'm sorry. He tore his ACL. Big loss for him last year. Hopefully he's healthy coming to this year, but again, it does take a while for that ACL injury to heal up, especially for a corner. But you have Mike Hilton, who's a great corner as well. Cameron Taylor-Britt, who I'm not sure how well known he is, league-wide or anything, but I like him a lot. He's a pretty tall corner, I think, and he's very, very good. I believe that was his rookie year last year. I like that a lot. You draft Miles Murphy out of Clemson, who I think is a great pick. And you still have Trey Hendrickson. You still have Sam Hubbard. You still have B.J. Hill. You have DJ Reader. I think the defense is very strong, but you do lose Jesse Bates and Von Bell. And that is tough. That is what really wants me to I would think about putting them in S. I probably wouldn't anyway, to be real. But you can make a case for them being an S if they had those safeties, but they don't anymore. So they're going in A in my opinion. Still a great defense, but that loss is going to sting. I think they're going to be able to regroup because you still have Dax Hill, who you drafted the year prior, who I think is going to be okay. But losing two safeties in one offseason is rough. I'm not going to lie. That is rough. Next is the Browns. The Browns, I think, have a very sneaky good defense. I'm just going to go ahead and move them to A right now. You have Myles Garrett, who obviously is one of the best rushers in the NFL, but you also signed Zadarius Smith, who's a very, very nice pickup, and you still have Denzel Ward. You have Greg Newsome. I'm a fan of it. I'm not going to lie. I think you also have Thornhill for safety you brought in as well, so I like that a lot. They're going in A. I'm a big fan of the Browns defense. Next is the Steelers. Same division, but they're going in S. The Steelers always have an incredible defense. You have TJ Watt, first off, who's just one of, if not the best pass rusher in the NFL. You have Minka Fitzpatrick. Their corners are a little shaky, I'm not going to lie, but you draft Joey Porter, which I think was perfect. He was a bit of a steal in my opinion, so big-time dub from the Steelers there. I like him a lot. I think their defense isn't going anywhere. That's staying in S. And next is the Texans. Now, I'm going to give the Texans a lot of credit here because the Texans' defense last year, I think, was really just used incorrectly, and I really wasn't a fan of it. But you bring in DeMeco Ryans, who's a defensive-minded head coach, and now I think that he's there. Things are going to change. You draft Will Anderson 3, and not only do you draft him 3, but you traded for back-to-back top 3 picks. So clearly you wanted him badly. You knew you needed him, and props to them for recognizing it. And then Derek Stingley, who I think was used incorrectly last year, and I think he's going to have a bit of a breakout year this year if he is used correctly, is Derek Stingley. He's a great corner, and I was honestly surprised he didn't have the craziest year last year. I honestly don't think that was a lot of that was on him. I am going to put the Texans in probably C tier defense because, again, the Texans are one of those teams that, in my opinion, are definitely trending up. But next year, I just don't see it all coming together at once. I personally, I just don't. But, you could definitely make a case for putting them in B. I like them a lot, but again, I'm just going to leave them in C for right now. But to look over this, so we have some teams in S, some teams in A. I'm sure there are some very unhappy fans with me with some of the teams I have in A. Like, you could totally move the Ravens up. You could probably move the Ravens up and the Patriots up. And honestly, I think I'll probably do that. I'm going to leave it like that because that's probably more well-deserved, I think, right there. I was just, trying to keep it fluid. And, as I'm talking sometimes, I kind of change my mind. But I just don't want to make it too jumbled and go back and forth. So that's why I do it till the end to kind of move those teams around. Looking at C and B, I think that's honestly how I like it. I don't want to change too much there, honestly. You could maybe move honestly, I like the way it is. I'm sure some of you guys, though, don't. So if you don't, and I mean, I know you don't, tell me down below what kind of problems you have with it. Personally, I do see maybe some changes between S and A. I think you guys could probably make some cases there, and honestly, that's totally valid. So let me know down below what do you guys think there. But that's going to do for the video. If you guys are around here, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel for all this NFL content, whether it's Madden or NFL videos. To all my Madden viewers, I know it's been a minute, but the game is very dead at this point, so I'm trying to think of more video ideas, but a lot of it is just really hard to do at this point. But there's still be coming, so just wait on those. And for all my NFL fans, it's going to be picking up a lot. I mean, I'm doing pretty much daily NFL videos from now till the season starts, and I will not stop. We're doing season picks when the season goes on. Still doing NFL tier list videos, all that kind of stuff. So thank you guys for watching. I do appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.